Hey, how's it going? Hope you're doing good, as you can be out there. It's a hard time, um, but we're going to get right into the astrology. Thanks for coming, thanks for listening. My name is Henry Harrison. Thank you for coming. I want to thank God, who will give us wisdom to look into these things, that some good may come of it to the glory of His name, Jesus' name. So, oh, thank God. So, yeah, this week was pretty bad, right? For a lot of people. I mean, having Venus square Saturn was definitely not comfortable for any context where that was important. Um, yeah, there's a lot I want to say. I just can't really quite. Hmm. Yeah, I guess we're just gonna stick to the astrology and just kind of breeze past the reality, the reality of it. But let's just take a look. So I wanted to change the way I did my reports, right? And I still don't really know how it's going to turn out, but I want to involve the mundane astrology in my transiting report, and that's not too hard to do. Exactly, it's a little cumbersome, but here you go. So I've got this is the mundane astrology chart for the summer of 2021 for the Western USA. And that chart's going to change this week on this 22nd, on Wednesday, I think, 22nd. To a different chart. And I want to make a video about that chart. I know I didn't really make much for the 2021 Western USA chart. I didn't really do much about it at all. Kind of because I didn't really feel good about it. I wasn't really sure. Um, but now I'm getting and it was a lot of work to do four of those charts for one video. So I guess seemed like too much, but it is how it is. So I will be getting better at it though, and so I'm happy for about that. But yeah, um, this scheme of houses, that's kind of the important thing. So you can really see that, you know. So this chart is set. Let's see, chart one. So I have the houses from this chart set on my transiting chart, right? That makes sense. So it's a Capricorn rising chart, and the ascendant is, early degrees Capricorn. Here, the moon is in a malefic enclosure, and if you've been dealing with that, I'm sorry about that. I hope it gets better for you this next week. I think that the new chart is a little bit easier in some ways, but also really, mundane astrology doesn't really pull any punches. So, but we will make a video about that. I guess. I guess in the next couple of weeks. I hope so. I hope so. I want it to be somewhat quality, and I also wanted to kind of feel out how the Mars Venus mutual reception, how what that how that actually is, because I mean, as my career of astrologer, I've only maybe live witnessed a couple times what it's like, right? Because the classic books, they say that it mitigates the difficult conditions, and it's almost as good as a planet in domicile. And I'm not sure about that. I could be wrong about that. That's what I remember reading multiple times. But I do think it mitigates the conditions. It's just the character, or let's say the tone. The tone is not one that's maybe to everyone's taste, right? But it is working in its own good way. It's just not. I don't think it's as readily perceptible, right? I think it works itself out in the chart in a nice way, but it's not like, a planet in its domicile, which in direct, which is very much, um, telling you about how good it is, right, and how good that planet is, and so on in a way. But all right. Um, uh, so the first thing I want to bring up is the full moon will be in the third house of California. So I mean, when the full moon in Pisces comes, you're going to see, a proliferation or a fullness in like, immediate community groups and such things, neighborliness. That new moon will be ruled by Jupiter retrograde, ruled by Saturn. So I mean, it is very subdued. Saturn is a retrograde still. So this full moon, while Pisces is an open-minded, peaceful, compassionate sign in general, being ruled by Saturn will definitely dampen, uh, I guess, the beneficence that could otherwise be. hmm And in the, let's see, this is where I learn in the this chart. This full moon is probably in the second house, wherever you want to really look. I know it says California right there, but I can't be switching. I can't be switching all that much. This is the chart for, or these are the houses for Nashville, and if you like, so let's do DC or Boston. Let's do Boston. Okay. Yeah, so that's a little bit different. I mean, and I think if you go even a little bit more east, you up northerners will have to have to work out the mundane astrology for yourself. I can't do it all right now. But, this is an extreme example of a rising sign at the very end of a sign. So, maybe the northerners, they take it in a more, the northeasterners, they take it in a more personal way, this full um, or, the focus is generally on the people as a whole. Like, the light is very strong in that way. So, you've got three different options there really for where this can really be showing up, this full moon, in the mundane context of America. Okay. Yeah, this video is going to be a little experimental. I mean, it's just, it's keeping it interesting for me, actually. I mean, I tried like, okay, what if I like make my videos and I don't show them to anybody? And they're just mine and people got to pay me for them. Well, that didn't make me feel more creative. And that's really what I wanted. I was kind of like looking for like a creative change that would kind of like, or change that would kind of, I guess, spur my creativity, and that wasn't it. And that was like a week ago. Been kind of ruminating about that. Okay. Are we talking about the astrology yet? I don't know. It's a lot of stuff with the moon this week. The charts change. The mundane astrology charts change. Mercury is stationing retrograde next week. He'll be retrograde next week, but he's very slow right now. You can see that. Mercury, very, very slow. He's stationing on the square to Pluto, right? So, all the, I don't want to say business, because it's not exactly business, but it's like what you've got to do, or what anyone has to do during this time. It's going to be a more extreme, more like, because it's on the square to Pluto and Mercury is going to pass that square to Pluto twice within like a 3-day period. I think next week will be a more critical, like kind of extreme moment. And when Mercury retrogrades, it kind of, I think there's an opportunity to really examine what's been working and what's not been working, and really allow the process to kind of take you where it goes, despite how weird the context might be in your life of what that is, that's come out so far. Could be some really weird stuff, for sure. All right, so let's just back it up, and we will see. Okay, so we got the. Here's the thing. So we got the Boston chart up in the other chart, right? And so it's got a late ascending, right? And so this whole week, you're gonna have more Mars in the 8th house stuff. Like we've been having that in the eastern side of USA with the hurricane, and the desolation that's come about because of that. Praise God. Praise God. Praise God. I do feel for you if you're dealing with the desolation. It's really not an easy thing. But I think you might see more of that more in the up north, in this week to come, and that's kind of what Mundane Astrology is for, to kind of let us know about that. But let's because having the 12th house, the 8th house ruler, and the the 3rd house and the 10th house ruler all together. I mean, it's maybe, don't want to say maybe. It's a continuance of this sort of effect on the world. But before we dwell on that too much and get all weird, let's start talking about the moon. And we'll just we'll put another chart, a different chart back up. Oh, you want to see the Mundane Astrology chart for California coming up? Here it is. So it's a Sag rising chart now. And of course, I said we're going to make another video about this. It's coming. It's definitely way too much to think about right now. I'm already spinning too many plates. I tend to do that. But, anyway, I just wanted to let you look at it if that's what you wanted, because I mean we're gonna make a little bit more reference to it in this video. Okay. And if you didn't know, this was you can kind of see it more clearly, and I've taken some planets off. All right, we're getting nowhere here, so let's continue. All right, so we'll start. We'll start on Sunday, right? Sunday, the 19th. So the moon is in Pisces. The moon makes the T-square to the north and the south node. They make the trine to Venus, and in the mid-morning, so that comes a little later. And then by late afternoon, the moon makes a sextile to Uranus, which I'm not going to include on here because it's a little, a little much. But I got all the outer planets on my notes, so I'm going to mention them there. All right, so we're coming up on the full moon here on Sunday. The full moon energy is getting strong. The sun and Mars have been kind of opposing Neptune for a while. The moon is right there. Let's just include Neptune. Why not? Neptune. All right. All right. So, and that moon Neptune conjunction doesn't really hit on Monday, till Monday, but overall I think Sunday can be an okay time. You got Mercury trining the ruler of Pisces, so they're in a good alignment, which could be bad, but for the most part, it allows for an easier flow to happen, right? That Mercury's very slow, though. So overall, I mean, I think it's a pretty pleasant day, and then it gets a little, um, outer planet vibes come in by the end of the day. But, as we get into Tuesday, the full moon happens. I have here, it's at 7 p.m. Central Standard Time here, before the moon goes into Aries, right? So the moon is void of course off of that full moon. So, I mean, I think it feels kind of weird. I mean, the full moon is a difficult aspect, but I think we're feeling weird about it for sure, because the moon is going to oppose Mars when the moon is in Mars' sign. So, and that happens on Tuesday. So Tuesday really, really gets into the nitty gritty of doing the Mars things that you want to do, or on another level, just having a good drive to go about things. Even though Mars he's under the beams, he's not combust yet, but I mean Mars is invisible. He's behind the sun, and that's that's problematic for having a good Mars energy. Not really a good place for Mars. He's suffering the stability by being under the beams. But like we talked about, that mutual reception I think is pretty good, even though it doesn't feel any good like type vibes. But I mean, I think it's good. It works. It's a working arrangement. Not really too much wrong with that, other than it's two planets in detriment. But the mutual reception really does do a good thing. To speak a little bit more about Monday, the moon will make a sextile to Pluto by noon. Let's make sure that we get that here. So I mean, moon's coming off of Neptune, it's full moon, and the moon's sextiling Pluto. So we've got sort of scary vibes coming in, honestly, kind of from like the Saturn ruled moon, and then everything the moon is connecting to is pretty Saturn oriented, except for the sun, who's in Mercury's house right now. What's Mercury doing? He's just in Libra, stationing retrograde. So I mean, it'll feel weird for sure. I mean, on a natural level, it'll be kind of popping off, but I mean, it's not really like a well aspected full moon. Really, it's really pretty. The moon isn't really talking to any other planets in a. Not really talking to any other good planets, really. Pluto is not a good planet, etc. But let's just go through it. As the moon goes into Tuesday, as we go into Tuesday, the moon makes opposition to Mars right off the bat, 6 a.m. So I mean, I think we wake up feeling pretty irritated. I am in a Mars-ruled year. My Mars is in Libra, and it's a Scorpio year. And so I have all these other separate issues that I have personally happening. But so do 1 in 6 people. So do 1 in 6 people, which is kind of the funny thing about the time word system. So everybody's gonna be kind of aggro, I think, on Tuesday morning. But the moon's connecting to the north and the south node, connecting to Saturn. So you can really find the stability in where you're meant to go with all this. I mean, I think you're really taking an action that's it has something to do with what you're ultimately building towards, or kind of like the north and the south node aren't really good planets either. They're points, but I don't. It is good to see planets like in a good alignment with them. With the moon having so much light, I think we really want to take a lot of that very driven sort of martial action but this Mars, he's in that mutual reception with Venus, right? He's in a totally not the right sign. It's I think you can work with it. I mean, I just wouldn't expect it to be like an ordinary moon in Aries transit. Such a bright moon. The ruler is doing that. Mars is also in the trine the sextile to the north and the south nodes. So I mean, we get this nice shape, and I think it's very dynamic, and I think you can use it. You can use it up. But as we get into Wednesday, Mars will perfect that trine to the north node. Mercury, still direct, will make that square to Pluto, and we've got the sun's ingress into Libra. Yay! Thank God. Finally, right? Freaking finally. Yeah, for most people that'll be pretty good, I think. To breathe maybe a little sigh of relief, a little sigh of relief there. But let's take a look at. All right, so as you know, the mundane astrology charts changed for the Western USA because they were a cardinal rising chart during the Aries ingress. So we've got this third quarter astrology chart. Overall, I mean, I think it's not really the worst. I mean, mundane astrology charts, you got to really dig into them to really see where the bad stuff is. And there's bad stuff for sure. Like Saturn in the third house, that's kind of weird. Being retrograde like that. Let's open another location just so you can see that. So you can see that it's let's do Denver. It's So Denver, I mean, I think Denver has a little bit better chart than California. I like putting, the delineation. I'm going to talk about this when I do the mundane astrology chart itself. That video, which will be an unlisted video on my YouTube, by the way. You'll be able to find it through my webpage, and I'll let you know about that somehow. It'll be like in a link in the bottom of this video or something like that. But Saturn, like the delineation for Saturn in the third house, which is more in California people, and like the really West Coast people. It's like being perplexed by weird dreams. That's kind of what Ramsey had to say about that. But I'm gonna get into that later. So, you see we've got a Sandra rising chart, imagine that, I'm just moving the houses here, not time. But, maybe this is also the chart, like somewhere in here is the chart for USA, West USA, right? So, I think it's a better looking chart than we had. But isn't that blasé? So, we'll just leave these houses kind of, we'll erect it straight up for Denver, and we'll just assume you live in Denver. No, I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. You don't live in Denver. You don't have to live in Denver. All right. So, yeah, make sure you got houses on. So, so things will really shift. There'll be this really intense focus on the government that comes in, and also what is the enemies of the people are also ruled by Mars here, the hidden enemies, and the joyousness of the fifth house is ruled by Mars. So when this chart changes, you're gonna Westerners, you're gonna feel that, right? More particularly. So I mean, there's definitely more of a government emphasis here, and an emphasis on I think community and socializing, however that may be available, but it is kind of like a government heavy time to be in, with Mars and the Sun in the 10th house. Um, anyway, where did we even stop? We stopped. Yeah, we're on Wednesday here, so Mercury makes that square to Pluto. So I mean, like we talked about earlier, it's Mercury's gonna be kind of sitting on that square to Pluto. So you're doing what you have to do, but like Pluto can bring like an extra sense of crisis, and also like Pluto can be like a people doing shady stuff or like trying to you like flex their power. It's like it comes out of like a deep sense of like fear and inadequacy and like despair, I think. But like it can be like people coming from that place trying to like be strong, right? And that can really be a Pluto thing. So with Mercury stationing there and gonna go backwards, hit that Pluto again. The times to come, this week and next week. I think there's a sense of criticalness about like, oh, we need to do this and do that and see this person and that person because of like a sense of lack of time, or these things need to be finished like business wise by then. But yeah, weird business energy, weird energy for doing anything but really looking to God about it, really, truly, with Mercury. Mercury retrograde really, gives you a time where you can, if you structured your life in this way, which I think is a good thing, it can really give you time to, people always say reflect, reflect on things, but it's not exactly like that. It's like you gotta, if Mercury in a big way is like kind of like how we put food in our mouth and clothes on our back, which that's not everything with Mercury. Mercury is kind of like the principle of the planet in a way. It's Kokab. But being a very changeable oriented planet, taking on the qualities of who he's with. He's stationary in Venus' sign. Venus is in Scorpio. Mercury, Mars, co-presence in a Libra. So, I'm losing my thread here. I'm losing my thread. Oh, it's gone. It's gone. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. So Mercury is like kind of like how we get all that stuff done. Like how do you just like how does God just like provide for like what you need like despite your circumstances, right? And that's a good thing to think about. And kind of like allowing your circumstances to change naturally. I mean, don't fight it, right? I mean, you've been getting context for this Mercury retrograde thing since like I don't know, like 2 months ago, right? I think you've been kind of seeing the things that have come out this week about this Mercury retrograde station, for sure. Right. And like one way to kind of think about that or look at that is like kind of like what's like come to a head this weekend. Like, what did you think this weekend was going to be about, or like what did you think you're going to do or be? Uh, that's kind of like Mercury like wanting to like keep chugging, right? But Mercury has to turn around. It's got to turn around. Okay, let's take a look at the sky map. I like looking at the sky map. It's pretty cool. Um, oh yeah. So I mean, Mercury stations retrograde on Spica, which I'm sure someone else can explain, and they will explain this week sometime. I don't really know anything about that, but Mercury, he kind of like stops, and then he does this like beeline for the ecliptic, right? And then when he gets to the ecliptic, then does a little roundabout, and then we're into the next new moon in Scorpio, I think. Yeah, and this really tells us a lot, I think, just looking at this, because I mean, it really shows us we've got multiple new moons with Mercury and Mars. So we got this new moon coming up next in Libra next week. Maybe not next week, it's like 2 weeks. Um, with Mercury retrograde there. So I mean, we're kind of starting something totally new where we have to like really, um, I think, examine our priorities and like really what's necessary for us as we go forward. But like having Mars right there too, being under the beams, like Mars being under the beams or like being combust by the time we get to that new moon. Being purified, so to speak. But I mean, really, it just it causes the Mars energy to not work as well. So mixed up with the Sun. I mean, the Sun energy and the Sun signification and the Mars signification is totally blending up. And having Mercury right there too really adds to the blendy factor. I think the blendiness of it all. But I just kind of wanted to show you the shape of it because you can see that like Mercury really like, he went down. Look at this day. So remember August 26th? Remember what happened on August 26th? Do you? I sure fucking don't. But here it is. It's right here. It was a Mars. It was a Moon in Aries day. We had. I was dealing with my own stuff at this time, but we were kind of like trying to like find the peace, like solidify like a good situation with Venus and Libra there. But with Mercury, Mercury was opposing Neptune. We had like this weird vibes with like trying to communicate and stuff, and Mercury was just coming out of that conjunction with Mars. So I mean, it was a very aggressive rap oriented energy, or energy of rappers at that time. But yeah. So I mean, I just really wanted to show you that the that shape is let's go back. Very significant. So the days that Mercury crosses the ecliptic, that time should be pretty remarkable. So I mean, if you would like to go back and look at what happened to you at the end of August, because I mean, we kind of entered into this thing that we've been dealing with since then, with Mercury below the ecliptic slowing down, and conjunct Spica now. But so the Mercury, he does a loop to loop, and then he goes backwards, which doesn't always happen. He goes backwards. He always goes backwards, but he doesn't always go in the same shape. Not quite even the same shape this time either. But that Mercury, he goes back and he reaches the ecliptic by the 15th of October. So I mean, I didn't really want to digress into the full Mercury retrograde delineation here, but Mercury, he crosses the ecliptic and speeds up after that, and that's good. I mean, I don't think that'll be a fun time either so much, but we'll see. But yeah. So yeah, October 15th is things won't be like moving ahead. Mercury will be really slow on October 15th, but the fact that he crosses the ecliptic on that day is significant somehow for you. And it looks like the moon is making a trine to Mercury on that day too, which is very interesting. We'll cross that bridge when we come to it, but that, except for Mars being right there, it looks okay. There's a lot of malefic energy in the charts between now and then. Okay, let's bring let's bring it back. So yeah, that stuff starts to happen on what's that, Wednesday? So yeah, the charts change, etc. Okay, sorry about that. That must have looked weird for you. Yeah, so the moon makes a sextile to Jupiter while he's in Aries towards the end of the day, which, Jupiter is Jupiter. I think Jupiter is really wrapped up in what he's doing with Saturn in Saturn's house right now, them both being so darn slow. And but Jupiter is benefic, probably a good whatever you had to bring about on this day probably reaches a successful issue. No worries. but the moon does make a square to Pluto and make an opposition to Mercury. So there is there is standoffs kind of communication, or like feeling on the Mars side, but kind of having to balance out the Mercury and Libra side where we want to communicate pleasantly. So yeah, Moon's in Mars house, Mercury is in the mutual reception thing. So, I mean, it'd probably be like kind of like hidden activities, or like you're acting, but it's kind of like you feel invisible type energy. That's what it looks like to me. But we got to move on. I've already kind of gone a little too far with this. So let's see. Yeah. So yeah, that's Wednesday. Wednesday has some good, has some bad, definitely. Doesn't it always? But on the 23rd, Thursday, the moon will go into Taurus. But before that happens, the Venus will oppose Uranus here. So I don't know. I don't need to bring that up, but Venus opposed Uranus. It's the other side of this weird coin. We just last night at the time of recording, we lived through that Venus Saturn square, right? So there was like a very cold influence on Venus. I personally felt it very strongly. It was very uncomfortable. But I think there's a different kind of uncomfort that comes in here with Venus opposed Uranus. Maybe it's let's also consider that the moon will be squaring Saturn on this day as well. So we feel like we're kind of feeling locked down, or like I wonder when that saying will ever go out of use. But the moon, we're kind of feeling locked down a little bit. But like we also, like, in our values, like Venus is our values, like we want to expand, we want to like pop off, break off, do something different. And the moon is also applying to Uranus here as well. Let's just turn on Uranus for the sake of visual clarity. Okay, they're all on. Moon's applying to Saturn and Uranus. That Uranus conjunction doesn't perfect until the 24th, until about noon. So, I don't think we really like take action on those things probably until the 24th. When we get that Venus opposition, I think which will be pretty. Venus is not in her own house, but the moon is in Venus's house with Uranus, making a square to Saturn. So, I mean, Venus energy isn't like fun, but it's like working, which I kind of guess is like my working model of what mutual receptions are like. But, the moon there is on Thursday, as the moon is in Taurus. Like we want to relax and like enjoy, and we are considering like these radical changes, I think, in our situations. That maybe Saturn wasn't willing to work with our situation. We tried with Venus and Libra, but now it's Venus and Scorpio times. We gotta do something different. We gotta do something different with that moon. But that probably doesn't really come in, like I said, until the 24th. So this day overall is probably 19 hours. Okay. Probably the beginning, like the earlier part of the day is probably okay, like when the moon isn't like too close to the orb of Saturn. I mean, the moon's next aspect is Saturn, so I think as soon as the moon goes into Taurus, we are going to be feeling it. But, it doesn't really, I don't know, I think it's like kind of an okay morning, maybe. I don't know, it's going to be weird. I'm into it, honestly. I'm going to find out. We're going to find out some stuff. We're going to find out some stuff this week. Okay, so the moon, applies that square to Saturn. It perfects around 1900 hours Central Time on the 23rd. And then on the 24th, all we have is the moon conjunct Uranus and opposing Venus. So, and that all kind of happens in the middle of the night. No, it doesn't. It's not in the middle of the day in America. So, probably a good day to just do something different if you can. It's gonna be a different way to find the pleasure of life. Very different. And I think that pleasure is there. It's there. I'm noticing it with this Mars Venus mutual reception. Like there's a sense of being able to find some pleasure that wasn't quite there when Venus just went into Scorpio, which could be good or bad depending on how you look at it. I actually kind of liked the losing a little bit of my enjoyment because I was enjoying a little bit too much, so I needed to stop. So kind of having that sense of not being able to find much pleasure helped me find a lot more moderation personally. So maybe it's kind of like that. Like you find like a very very nice moderation. Venus is like seeing her sign from the other side. She's not in the most terrible condition, but not in the best either. And that really is the main vibe on the 24th. And I think this could be like unexpected favor if you pray for that. I think you could find that on this day. But as we get into the 25th, the moon makes a sextile to Neptune, makes a square to Jupiter retrograde. And this is Saturday, by the way. This is our last day for the week report. Okay. Sextile Neptune, square Jupiter retrograde, trine Pluto, all in the morning, and then Mars trines Saturn. So, maybe if you consider that Jupiter rules the trine, and you have Saturn there ruling Jupiter, and it's a very Saturnine moment, and I think we've been picking up on that Mars, he's not even combust yet, even just under the beams, pretty much invisible, trining Saturn retrograde. And obviously next week we'll have the Sun trining Saturn as well, which will finally, like, these outer planets will be starting to move forward, and that'll be really nice, I think. Can you see that? Like, yeah, like once the Sun gets through that trine, it pretty much starts to move forward. Yeah, but I mean, Mars trine Saturn. Well, we've had Mars trine Saturn all year in the mundane astrology chart for the Eastern USA. And, the delineation for that was really like, the people abound in all things, but they're very quiet. And, the Saturn retrograde thing, the way I see it, the Saturn's in the 12th house retrograde, people really are quiet and just not really minding their own business and not really seeing each other, having much of a good time. So, this Mars trying to Saturn thing here, the way I'm seeing it show up, it's kind of like a ruthless sort of energy. I think Pluto Mars is a pretty ruthless energy too, but kind of, I guess, like in this weird time, like how can you work within the context of the restrictions? I think it's very available. We got to kind of think about this in context of Mars being in Scorpio, squaring Saturn, coming up eventually. And, this mostly kind of looks uncomfortable, I feel like. It's kind of uncomfortable vibes with Mars trine Saturn. But, I mean, it's, you do what you gotta do type stuff, right? You do what you do you do what you got to do. All right, so yeah, and then the moon goes into Gemini later on that evening. Picks up on this weird grand trine thing with the North Node. So yeah, some like weird fateful stuff sort of comes out, or just like kind of like overdoing it. I feel like at this time Mercury is stationary. That's the ruler of the moon. It's on Pluto. So I mean, it looks like kind of bad vibes on Saturday. Kind of in general, or just like maybe bad vibes, but like there's like some fateful bad energy that comes out during this time. But it's astrology. It's astrology. So let's take like one more look at the mundane chart here. So I mean, you can see that Saturn retrograde in the 12th house here for our Nashville friends. Shout out to my Nashville friends. Yeah, so I mean, I don't really like this for a mundane context. Having the Sun and Mars conjunction in the 8th house, trining the 12th house. Well, I mean, it really looks to me like kind of really coming to terms with the destruction in a big way. And just kind of, if it's not the destruction, it's just kind of like, the way people are, or like, really the way people are, specifically with Saturn there. Coming to terms with that. And I guess like big losing, I guess, like coming to terms with the losses. And so we got the 7th house ruler with the 8th with the 10th house ruler. So I'll leave that for later. I don't know anything about that. But I hope you had a good one. I hope this was at least helpful for you, interesting. I pray God will bless you if you've listened to this video. It is a good thing to get wisdom from God, right? To deal with all of this. Having a biblical vision of wisdom is very helpful. You read the Proverbs of Solomon and the Psalms and Job. All good things to read to give you some ammo, I guess, against the natural course of things, right? Because God, by His wisdom, He established the natural course of things, right? I was reading Job. And I really like Job. It's a hard one. It's a hard one to get for sure. But when God answers Job in the last few chapters, right, He says, knowest thou the ordinances of heaven? Canst thou set the dominion thereof in the earth? And that's Job 38, 33. And, of course, 31 and 32 are very famous verses, even though I don't really know how well those are translated. But they're very interesting. It just shows that, God, He established these ordinances by His wisdom in heaven. But in this section, He's kind of saying, like, Job, you're not the one that sets all this stuff up. I'm the one that does it. So, but the interesting thing I want to emphasize is it's, all these things are sourced in God's wisdom, right? Everything that happens it comes from that place. So it's a good thing to apprehend it, because it puts you at the source, the principal source, the real principal source of things. I hope that was helpful. So that's all I need to say. God bless you. We'll be back next week with another interesting astrology report. God bless you, and I'll see you then.